Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. The courtroom was ice cold, but Brianna Walker's voice cracked through the silence like a whip. "Objection, Your Honor. He just set me up," she shrieked, her manicured hand slamming the table. Judge Daniels narrowed his eyes. Jason stood tall, unmoved, his face unreadable beneath the soft glow of the overhead lights. He wore a simple gray suit, nothing flashy, but the silence around him, it was volcanic. Across the room, the bailiff's radio crackled. "Units incoming. Stand by to receive." The double doors behind the courtroom burst open. 2 U.S. Marshals entered first, followed by a pair of men in plain clothes with badges clipped to their belts. Chase Adams, once Jason's best friend, now the reason he slept with a pistol under his pillow, froze mid-smirk. "You have got to be kidding me," Chase muttered, his voice cracking as the marshals locked eyes with him. "Chase Adams. Brianna Walker. Federal arrest warrant for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, grand larceny, and identity theft. Hands behind your backs." No, this is not happening," Brianna whispered, stepping back. Jason, tell them the truth. You know this is insane." Jason said nothing. He watched her with the cold, precise calm of a man who had waited too long for this moment. Brianna's heel caught the leg of her lawyer's chair. She stumbled, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I am the mother of his child," she screamed, clawing toward the judge. "This is a setup." "No," Jason said finally, voice like gravel. "This is justice." The room fell into chaos as the judge slammed his gavel. Jason never moved. The entire courtroom was spinning, gasping, yelling. But for him, it was finally still. He turned his head slightly. His daughter, Lily, sitting quietly in the corner next to a court-appointed guardian, gave him a tiny smile. He nodded once. And finally, after years of silence, deception, and betrayal, Jason allowed himself to breathe. But the story, the real story, had started long before that paper touched the judge's hand. Wait, if this story gave you chills or made you think twice about trust, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to support the channel, and subscribe if you never want to miss another jaw-dropping tale. We drop new stories every week that'll leave you speechless. To everyone who's already subscribed, sending you heartfelt love and thanks. Join the family, because here, every story hits different. Now, let's dive back into the story. 3 months earlier. "Your security system needs an upgrade," said Jason, watching the data stream flicker across his triple monitor setup. "You know I trust you more than firewalls," said his client over the phone. Jason smirked faintly. "Then you are smarter than most CEOs." His home office was sterile, methodical. 2 degrees framed on the wall. A military commendation. A photo of him in full gear, crouched in sand, eyes dead focused. But behind him, a different life hummed quietly. The scent of cinnamon rolls. The sound of Lily's cartoon playing in the next room. Brianna's laughter echoing faintly as she FaceTimed her sister, or claimed to. Jason ended the call, then leaned back in his chair. Something was off. He had lived his life reading patterns, threat profiles, encrypted chatter, surveillance logs. He had survived places most men did not walk away from. And now, his own home felt like enemy territory. Brianna had started locking her phone, whispering calls in the bathroom. She took self-care weekends twice a month. The same woman who used to trace circles on his chest until he fell asleep now turned her back with practiced ease. But the moment that hit hardest was simple. It was dinner. He cooked her favorite, garlic butter steak, roasted asparagus, wine from Napa. Lily had drawn a picture for her, a house, a dog, and mommy, daddy, and me. Brianna barely looked at it. She smiled at her phone more than her daughter that night. Jason cleaned up alone, tucked Lily into bed alone, then sat outside on the back porch with a bourbon glass in one hand and the other clenched around nothing. He knew Not the details. Not yet. But his instincts had never failed him. There was a war brewing. And this time, it was not bullets and insurgents. It was lies. Hidden messages. Secrets whispered between silk sheets. He just had to wait for the right time to strike. And when he did, there would be no survivors. It happened by accident. Jason was fixing the loose panel under the passenger seat in Brianna's car. She had been complaining about a strange rattle, and instead of waiting for a mechanic, Jason offered to handle it himself. Old habits. If something was broken, he fixed it. But when he pulled the panel free, a sleek, black phone clattered to the floor. No case. Just bare metal. Silent. For a moment, he froze. This was not her phone. Her actual phone, the gold iPhone with the cracked corner, was sitting on the counter back in the kitchen. So what was this? Jason picked it up. It lit up instantly. No passcode. The home screen was clean. Too clean. No apps. No photos. Except for one thing. A folder named Bills. He tapped it. Inside, hundreds of text messages. Images. Wire confirmations. Location pins. Voice memos. And at the top of the conversation list, Chase Adams. Jason did not react. He just scrolled. I love waking up next to you. Soon he will be gone again. Then it is just us. The house will be ours. Jason's pulse slowed. Not sped up, slowed. Like it did in combat. One image. Brianna in bed. Sheets down to her hips. Taking a selfie. Smiling. Captioned. He has no idea. Jason stood up slowly. Walked to the sink. Washed the grease from his hands. Then turned off the light. His war had begun. Not in the desert. Not in a bunker. But right there, in the kitchen of the home he built with his bare hands. And this enemy? Wore his last name. Jason did not say a word. Not that night. Not the next morning. Brianna came into the kitchen wearing her favorite silk robe, humming to herself as she poured almond milk into her protein shake. Morning, babe, she said with that casual sweetness she used when hiding something. Jason was standing at the sink, scrubbing Lily's lunch container with mechanical focus. The sun broke through the blinds, casting harsh light across the countertop. He turned and gave her a smile. Not the real one. The one he used in interrogations. Calm. Controlled. Deceptively warm. Morning. She kissed his cheek, barely brushing his skin. He caught the scent of another man's cologne. And still, he said nothing. Because he needed more. Brianna left for her yoga retreat that afternoon. Jason loaded her car, kissed her goodbye, and told her to drive safe. The moment her tires rolled off the driveway, he got to work. In her closet, he found a locked fireproof box beneath her scarves. Took him 6 minutes to crack it open. Inside were 2 passports, a stack of unsigned power of attorney forms with his forged signature, and 1 flash drive labeled retirement. When he plugged it into his secure laptop, the files opened up like a live grenade. Real estate transfer documents. Multiple properties. All under shell company names. All created while he was deployed. One property had been transferred just 2 months ago from a veterans housing fund. One Jason had personally helped lobby Congress for, to a private holding firm linked to Chase Adams. Jason leaned back in his chair. His wife had not just cheated on him. She had used him, weaponized his deployments, exploited his access, his name, and for what? Luxury condos and a man who never made it past sophomore year of community college? He closed the laptop and rubbed his temples. The betrayal was no longer personal. It was federal. Jason sat across from Dr. Madeline Rossner, the only person he could trust with what was coming. She had treated him for combat stress after his 3rd tour. One of the few therapists who actually listened instead of scribbling notes and throwing pills. You think she is setting you up? She asked gently. I do not think it, Jason said. I know it. He handed her the text screenshots. The messages between Brianna and Chase. The casual way they joked about weaponizing his trauma. One even said, just drop a hint to the right person. Jason looks scary when he is tired, right? All we need is one claim of instability. Dr. Rossner's hands tightened around the printouts. Jason, You need a lawyer. And you need to document everything. I already started, he replied. But I wanted it on record before she does. She nodded, her face pale. Jason knew Brianna had been laying the groundwork for months. She had made subtle comments to friends, claimed he was different after returning home, told their neighbor he sometimes spaced out when looking at Lily. Every lie planted like a landmine. Has she ever said you were violent? Dr. Rossner asked carefully. Jason shook his head. Not yet, but she is getting there. She handed him a sealed letter. My professional statement, she said, that you are lucid, stable, and not suffering from any diagnosable disorder. File it with your attorney. Jason stood. Thank you. Jason, she said as he turned to leave. I have treated soldiers for 25 years. You are one of the most grounded men I have ever met. But do not try to be a hero here. He gave a grim smile. I am not trying to be a hero, document. I am just trying to survive my own house. Jason went dark. He did not confront Brianna. He did not change his tone. He did not even blink when she came back from her retreat, wearing new earrings she swore were a gift from a spa friend. Instead, he played his role, the dependable husband, the man who missed too many birthdays and now just wanted peace. But behind the scenes, he turned into a ghost. He used his army network to contact an old friend, Cal Durham, former signals intelligence, now a private surveillance specialist out of Dallas. I need everything, Jason said when Cal picked up. Phones, email, GPS, audio. All of it. Over the next 3 weeks, Jason set the trap. He installed audio triggers under the baseboards, synced Brianna's car GPS to a separate server, created a shell email under a fake name to message Chase, offering him a real estate tip just to confirm he was still using Jason's stolen intel. Chase took the bait in 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Jason quietly moved money into a protected trust under Lily's name. He rerouted his paycheck, changed his power of attorney, prepared the divorce documents, and he visited Lily's school every Friday for lunch. Because no matter what storm was coming, she was going to know that her father was there. Always. One night, Brianna stumbled into bed past midnight. Jason pretended to be asleep. Her phone buzzed. He recognized the pattern. 3 quick taps, pause, 2 more. The passcode to unlock it. He did not move, just memorized it, then waited. Because soon, she was going to serve him with papers. She thought she was going to take the house, the car, their daughter. But what she did not know, the war she started was already lost. And the soldier she betrayed was not sleeping anymore. The office was slick, marble floors, glass doors, and a scent of fake pine lingering from a too expensive diffuser. Jason sat in the waiting lounge of Adams Realty Group, dressed in jeans, an old hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low. The receptionist barely looked up from her computer. Got a meeting with Mr. Adams? She asked, tapping her nails on the desk. No, Jason said calmly. Just browsing listings. He picked up a brochure from the counter, luxury homes with a view. Every one of them was tagged sold. He flipped through slowly, studying the fine print beneath each listing. Then he saw it. Lego Vista Development. Unit 9 beat closed under. Vanguard West Partners, LLC. He blinked once. That was the same LLC listed on the forged property transfer Brianna had filed. He slipped the brochure into his jacket pocket. Chase walked out from the back hallway, laughing loudly with a young couple. Tan, fitted suit. Rolex glinting in the light. His smile vanished when his eyes locked onto Jason. But Jason did not flinch. He looked straight at him. Calm. Cold. Chase cleared his throat and turned his back. Jason stood and walked out the door. Slowly. Deliberately. Once in his truck, he pulled out his phone and called Cal. That portfolio I asked about? Jason said. You were right. Shell companies, stacked. And Chase is laundering through them. Cal exhaled on the other end. You want me to start compiling the paper trail? No, Jason replied. I already have most of it. Then what do you need me to do? Jason stared out the windshield as Chase's reflection danced across the glass door behind him. I need you to find out if the company has government money tied into any of those builds. If they touched anything related to my veterans grant, it's game over." Cal whistled low. "That is a long fall." "Exactly," Jason said. He started the engine. "And I am going to make sure they hit every stair on the way down." The dinner table was set for 4. Lily, at the end with her stuffed bunny. Jason and Brianna on opposite sides. And across from Jason, Chase. He had brought wine. Spanish red. Poured it like he belonged there. Jason watched him closely, his fingers light on the base of the glass, but never drinking. "Not tonight. Man, it is wild seeing you back in civilian life," Chase said with a grin, cutting into his steak. "But it feels good to finally rest." Jason gave a small nod. "It is quieter, but the quiet is never peace. You know how that goes." Chase chuckled nervously. "Sure, yeah." Brianna reached across the table, brushing Chase's wrist lightly as she passed the salad. Jason caught the flicker in Chase's eyes, the way his jaw tensed. Brianna laughed too loud at something Lily said, like she was trying to erase that touch with noise. Jason kept his face smooth, casual. He had wired the dining room with a lapel mic hidden beneath the chandelier. Every sound, every whisper, it was being recorded in crystal clarity. "Babe," Brianna said sweetly, "Chase was telling me we should look into a cabin upstate. Just a getaway spot, nothing crazy." Jason raised an eyebrow. "A cabin? You have not even liked camping since that mosquito bit you in Galveston." Chase leaned in. "It is not really camping. These places have hot tubs. Wi-Fi. Total luxury." Jason set his fork down. "Sounds cozy." Then he looked directly at Brianna. "Would it have a second bedroom?" There was a pause. Barely a second. But he saw it. In both their eyes. Chase was the first to laugh. Too loud. Too fake. "You are still sharp as hell, man." Jason smiled. But it never reached his eyes. After dinner, he tucked Lily in while Brianna poured herself another glass of wine. Jason stood in the hallway, staring at the two of them laughing in the kitchen. He did not hate them. Not yet. But he would make sure they hated what came next. Jason stepped into the county records office the next morning. The clerk, a gray-haired woman with tired eyes, barely looked up. "Can I help you?" "I need access to recent property transfers," Jason said. "Last 6 months. Especially anything tied to Vanguard West Partners, LLC. She squinted at him. "Are you legal counsel?" "I am the original owner of one of the transferred properties. I believe my name was used without consent." That got her attention. She typed quickly, pulled up a screen, and turned the monitor so Jason could see. Rows of documents appeared. Transfer records. Notarized deeds. Digital signatures. Jason leaned closer. There it was. His name. Signed on a property title in Houston. Dated May 14th. The problem? He was in Jordan that week, monitoring encrypted insurgent radio traffic. "Can I request certified copies of these?" he asked. The clerk nodded. "That will take an hour." Jason walked outside, pacing slowly near the sidewalk, heart cold and steady. 1 hour later, he held the papers in his hand. Forgery. Pure and simple. But what caught his breath was the second name listed as witness on the document. Brianna A. Walker. She had not just known. She had been part of it. Back home, he scanned the document into his system, sent it to Maya Delgado, his lawyer, then dropped a copy into the encrypted server Cal had set up. Then he stared at the PDF. A single sentence burned into his brain. All necessary signatures confirmed and present under penalty of perjury. Jason closed the laptop. They thought they had built the perfect lie. But now, he had the match. And it was time to burn it all down. Jason sat in his garage, lights dimmed, the door sealed shut. Not out of secrecy, but to focus. The blueprints lay stretched across his workbench. Not for buildings, but for betrayal. He stared at the timeline he had drawn, deployment dates, financial transactions, transfers of property, and Brianna's wellness retreats. He marked each movement with red ink. The patterns lined up too perfectly. Every time he was stationed overseas, Chase's firm gained a new property. and Brianna would transfer funds out of their joint account, sometimes just under reporting thresholds. Jason turned to the email threads between Brianna and a man named Eli Trent, a name that had come up in one of the shell company files. He had assumed it was just another broker. But Eli was not in real estate. He worked for a private fund that processed government grants, specifically ones connected to veteran housing programs. Jason's veteran grant, the one he had spent 2 years lobbying for. He clicked open one attachment. A scanned agreement signed by Vanguard West and Eli's firm. A portion of the funds, nearly $120,000, were misallocated through falsified invoices. Jason's name appeared as the consultant for the logistics portion, except he had never seen the contract. They were not just sleeping together. They were using him, his deployments, his identity, his reputation, to quietly launder federal aid and bury the trail. Jason leaned back in the chair, exhaling slowly. This was not about heartbreak anymore. This was treason. He picked up his phone and texted Cal. Found federal ties. It is deeper than we thought. We need to go full blackout. I will handle Brianna. Cal replied instantly. Copy. Sending the warrant connections now. Lupin Maya. Jason locked his phone and stared at the ceiling. The woman sleeping in his bed was not just unfaithful. She was a criminal, and the house she had tried to make him leave was about to become the scene of her downfall. Jason watched Lily draw with crayons on the back patio, the sun warming her golden hair. She was humming softly to herself, peaceful, unaware. Inside the house, Brianna was on another call, low voice, tense words, pacing. Jason already had the recorder running through the smoke detector. He had started gathering audio proof of emotional manipulation weeks ago. But now, he had to protect something far more sacred than evidence. He had to protect Lily. Later that night, when Brianna went to shower, Jason quietly opened her laptop. She always left it asleep, never powered off. Sloppy. He clicked into her documents. A file labeled Custody Strategy Draft waited on the desktop. Jason's stomach tightened. He opened it. The first page laid it out like a war plan. Primary goal, full custody strategy. Establish emotional instability in Jason Walker. Gather third-party witness statements. Prepare references from Lily's teacher and pediatrician, pre-influenced. File complaint weapons in the home. Backup plan, imply PTSD-related disassociation in front of Lily. Use Dr. Green's prior report as soft backup. Jason's fingers curled into fists. She had weaponized his service, his trauma, his honesty in therapy. There were even instructions to coach Lily gently to express fear of father's discipline. That alone made his chest clench. His daughter loved him. This was psychological warfare, and Lily was the battlefield. He copied the file, encrypted it, and sent it to Maya with one line. We escalate now. She responded within minutes. We file counter-motion for immediate protective custody. Judge Moore is sympathetic to military clients, especially with a clean record. You bring Lily in tomorrow. Jason shut the laptop as the shower turned off upstairs. He walked to Lily and sat beside her, gently touching her back. Pumpkin, he said, voice steady. How would you feel about spending more time just you and me for a little while? Lily looked up and grinned. I would love that, Daddy. Jason smiled and kissed the top of her head. This was no longer just about revenge. It was about rescue. Jason walked into Lily's school the next morning holding her tiny hand. She skipped beside him, talking about how her art class was painting butterflies that week. The receptionist greeted him with warmth. Good morning, Mr. Walker. Lily's teacher said she had something she wanted to give you. Jason blinked. She did. Moments later, Ms. Taylor, Lily's art teacher, arrived holding a folded piece of bright construction paper. She made this during free time yesterday, she said with a tight smile. I was not sure if I should share it, but I think you need to see it. Jason took the paper, thanked her, and crouched down in the hallway to open it. It was a drawing. Crude. Childlike. A house with 3 stick figures. One was Lily, smiling. The other 2, Mommy and Uncle Chase. In a bed, Jason's breath caught. There was a broken heart drawn between them. At the bottom, in shaky crayon, Daddy is outside. Sad face. He stood slowly, folding the paper like it was a grenade. Did she say anything about this? Jason asked, his voice dry. She said, "This is Mommy's secret. I saw it by accident." Miss Taylor hesitated. "I did not press, but I thought you should know." Jason nodded once. "You did the right thing." By the time he got back to his truck, his pulse had slowed to that same dangerous calm, the one he had not felt since his final extraction mission in Syria. He texted Maya, "Lily just handed me proof that changes everything. We go in now." She replied instantly, "Meet me at the courthouse in 2 hours. Bring the drawing. Bring Lily. We file emergency custody before she can file anything else." Jason looked in the rearview mirror. Lily sat in her booster seat, humming again, kicking her feet softly. This little girl had seen too much already. He gripped the wheel. No more. Maya Delgado did not waste time. She stood in front of the judge's bench, voice sharp and unwavering. "Your Honor, we are filing an emergency petition for sole custodial rights on behalf of Mr. Jason Walker. We have attached photographic evidence of emotional manipulation, financial fraud implicating the child's mother, and a drawing created by the minor that strongly suggests exposure to inappropriate conduct between the mother and a non-family male." The judge, stern, mid-50s, with a background in family law, flipped through the folder. Jason sat silently beside Maya, his eyes locked forward, hands clasped. Across the courtroom, Brianna's seat was still empty. The judge looked up. "Where is the respondent?" "Your Honor," Maya replied coolly. She was not served in advance. "This is an emergency filing. Mr. Walker is requesting a temporary restraining order pending full hearing." The judge paused, studying Jason. "Military?" "Yes, sir." "Decorated?" Jason nodded. 16 years. "Intelligence?" "No disciplinary record." The judge exhaled. He signed the order without a second thought. "You have 48 hours to serve her. Until then, she has no access to the child or shared assets. I am freezing all joint accounts immediately pending investigation." Jason's heart clenched, not with fear, but relief. A door had finally opened. As they exited the courthouse, Maya turned to him. "Now we bleed her dry. She will not see this coming." Jason gave her a grim smile. Back home, he went straight to his private safe. Inside, birth certificates, marriage license, Brianna's social security number, and, most importantly, the master list of every asset they ever owned. He checked the ledger. 5 properties, originally listed under his name. Now, all moved under LLCs. Every transfer filed while he was deployed. But here was the kicker. She had signed a notarized affidavit claiming he had gifted them to her to make up for psychological strain caused during military absence. Jason nearly laughed. He sent scans to Maya with one line. "Let's see her explain gifts bought with stolen federal grant money." The hunter was closing in, and Brianna had no idea she was walking into her own ambush. Jason changed the locks. Every single one. Digital, biometric, deadbolt, replaced. Not out of anger, but strategy. Brianna came home that night wearing a new jacket and a polished fake smile. She jiggled the front doorknob, confused, then knocked. Jason opened it just enough to look her in the eye. "New policy," he said. "Excuse me. This house is now legally under protection. Court order. You have 48 hours to respond through your attorney." She stared at him, lips twitching. "You are joking." Jason handed her the papers through the gap. She looked down, read, and went pale. "You did this?" "Behind my back." Jason stepped back, motioning to the camera mounted above the porch. "Everything is being recorded. Leave now." She clenched her jaw, snatched the papers, and stormed off. Inside, Jason sat Lily at the table and served her spaghetti. "Mommy's not coming to dinner?" she asked. Jason smiled softly. "Not tonight. Later, when Lily slept." He reviewed the hard drive Cal had just delivered. It was loaded with intercepted emails between Chase and Brianna. Coded names, money transfers, references to Jason as Ghost, and one line that made his blood run ice cold. If he gets too close, trigger plan B. Play the PTSD card hard. Make him look unstable. If he loses the kid, he'll snap. Then we win. Jason leaned back. They were not just playing dirty. They were playing for destruction. He picked up his phone and texted Maya. Tell the judge I have proof of intentional defamation. Full-blown strategy. I want a full forensic audit subpoenaed. She replied, consider it done. Time to break them. Outside, wind hit the windows. But inside, Jason sat unmoved. Because now, he was no longer reacting. He was dictating every move. The next morning, Jason stood in Maya's office, watching as she arranged a row of printed emails across the glass conference table. This is not just fraud, she said slowly. It is premeditated destruction of character. Do you understand how rare it is to catch both the crime and the psychological setup behind it? Jason nodded. I caught it because I used to train people to think like them. Maya smirked. Then I am glad you are on our side. She began drafting subpoenas to Chase's firm, Brianna's financial records, even her therapist, whom they believed she had coached to write manipulated notes about Jason's behavior. This case is going federal, Maya said. There is no stopping that now. Once we show this to the DA, the wire fraud, the grand embezzlement, it all becomes federal prosecution. And Brianna? She is going to prison, Jason finished. And she is taking Chase with her. Jason's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Just a photo. A picture of Jason outside Lily's school. Caption, cute kid. Would be a shame if her daddy snapped someday. Jason stared at it for a long moment, then forwarded it to Maya. She read it. Her face turned to stone. We file a protective order today. Cal is going to trace this number. Jason's expression never changed. Let them try, he said quietly. I was trained to dismantle terrorist networks with nothing but satellite images and heartbeat data. He turned toward the window, watching traffic pass in the distance. This, he said, this is personal. Maya folded her arms. Then let's bury them. Cal's voice came in low over the secure call line. We just tracked Chase's secondary phone. Guess where it lit up last night? Tell me. Jason replied, eyes narrowed. Caesar's Palace. Las Vegas. Jason sat back, staring at the ceiling like he was staring through it. Do you know what he is doing there? Cal snorted. Oh, he is not gambling. I cross-referenced the security feeds. He is meeting with Eli Trent. Jason's jaw tensed. Eli, the finance guy from the grant laundering trail. The one Jason now knew had helped funnel over $100 grand from a housing initiative meant for disabled veterans. What room? Jason asked. Penthouse level. Under a burner reservation. We have photos of them drinking champagne, laughing like they already got away with it. Jason hung up without saying goodbye. He sat in the dark for a while, then opened the folder labeled Strategic Leak. Inside were audio files, screenshots, that child's drawing. Jason copied everything to a clean drive, dropped it into a padded envelope, and addressed it to a contact in the Department of Veterans Affairs. He was done playing fair. Brianna's attorney finally responded. A man named Tanner Reed, arrogant, expensive, and unbothered. He called Maya's office with a smirk in his voice. My client believes all of these allegations are exaggerated. She has agreed to mediation and is confident the judge will rule in her favor. Maya smiled coldly. Tell your client to wear something neutral to court. Orange clashes with everything. Jason chuckled when she told him. The court date was set for 2 weeks out. But Jason knew they were trying to buy time, to shred evidence, hide funds, possibly even skip town. He was already ahead of them. He had frozen every account, triggered an IRS flag on Chase's company, forwarded fraudulent grant activity to a federal oversight committee. Now, the walls were closing in. That night, Brianna showed up at the house again. Jason opened the door but kept the security chain in place. I want to see my daughter, she said, trying to sound controlled. You will, under supervision. As per court order. This is not who you are, she hissed. You are being brainwashed. I do not even know this man standing in front of me. Jason leaned closer. No, you never did. She stepped back, face hardening. You think this ends in court? You have no idea what I am capable of. Jason's expression did not flinch. Yes, he said. That is exactly the problem. He closed the door and locked all 3 bolts. Jason sat on the edge of his bed, staring into the dark. Lily was fast asleep, hugging her bunny, safe for now. But his mind would not stop racing. Every moment with Brianna played in his head now like surveillance footage. Their wedding, her vows, the first ultrasound, the day they closed on the house. All of it felt staged now, like she had always known she would flip the board someday and walk off with everything. He stood and moved to the living room. The files were spread across the coffee table. Legal documents, audio transcripts, screenshots, his war table. But the weight pressing on him tonight was not legal. It was emotional, because beneath all the betrayal, all the strategy, all the planning, there was still a man who had loved her. Not blindly, not naively, but deeply. He poured himself a glass of water and stared out the window. A distant siren echoed through the quiet night. He whispered to no one, "How long were you planning this?" As if she might answer from the shadows. But the night stayed silent. And so he turned back to the files, to the evidence, to the war, because love had ended long ago. But this fight was just beginning to heat up. Jason found it taped to his mailbox. A single sheet of paper. No envelope. No return address. Typed in block font. Plain as day. You think the courts will save you? They cannot stop what's coming. Back off, or Lily won't be safe either. Jason stared at it in the fading afternoon light. His jaw tightened. He walked back inside calmly and closed the door behind him. Then he scanned the letter, printed 2 copies, and emailed a photo to Maya and Cal. He picked up his phone. Cal answered on the second ring. It's escalating, Jason said. I figured it would, Cal replied. We are tracing traffic around your IP logs. Someone's been pinging your location. Probably using an anonymizer, but we'll find the breach. Jason hung up and walked into Lily's room. She was watching cartoons, laughing at something on screen, completely unaware of the shadow creeping behind their lives. He watched her for a moment. His daughter, the one pure thing in his world. Then he went to the safe and unlocked the pistol case. He had not touched it since he came home. But tonight, it was not about paranoia. It was about preparation. 2 days later, Jason received a thick padded envelope by certified courier. No sender listed. The address was handwritten, but the moment he felt its weight, he knew it was from Cal. Inside, a hard drive, a printed summary, and a short note. They buried themselves. Here's the shovel. Jason plugged the drive into his secure laptop. One folder, named Vega Full, it opened into subfolders. Chase's emails, Brianna's call logs, financial statements, GPS trackers. Cal had not just traced them. He had recreated a timeline that showed every movement, every payment, and every message exchanged during the height of Jason's deployments. One thread stopped Jason cold. An email from Chase to Eli, CC'd to Brianna. Subject, Plan Final Phase, Post-Custody Transfer Text. Once Jason's parental rights are revoked, Brianna gets the house. Eli finalizes sale by end of Q3. We liquidate and split profit. Make sure her story lines up with PTSD claim. Jason read it twice. They had planned to erase him. Not just from the house. From his daughter's life. He stood, heart thudding, not with panic, but with white-hot clarity. They had stopped pretending. Now, so would he. He forwarded the full package to Maya. Attached one line. Time to burn them in front of the judge. Jason's house had become a tactical zone. Each night, after Lily was asleep and Brianna was nowhere nearby, he locked the doors, dimmed the lights, and opened the war room. One monitor played security feeds from the house and driveway. Another showed GPS signals from Cal's track on Chase's car. A third contained every digital piece of the puzzle: evidence folders, timeline charts, audio backups. He had even placed a backup thumb drive inside a small waterproof box and buried it in the backyard under the swing, just in case. But tonight, he was not reviewing evidence. He was preparing his testimony. Maya had told him, "The judge is ruthless with lies. You go in there and tell the truth, every piece of it. The betrayal, the setup, the strategy, the drawing. And you show that you are not angry. You are just done." Jason wrote it all out. Not scripted, just real. He wrote about the woman he married, the family he tried to build, the home he fought to protect, and how, while he was overseas defending strangers, the people closest to him drew the knife. He wrote about Lily, and how this fight was not revenge, it was survival. At 2:11 a.m., he finished. Then he closed the laptop and slept beside his daughter on the floor, her small hand tucked against his chest. Not because he was afraid, but because he knew exactly how far Brianna was willing to go, and he would be ready when she tried. Jason was not following Brianna's social media, but Cal was. That morning, Cal sent him 4 screenshots. For Instagram captions from Brianna's carefully curated feed: "I will rise when they try to bury me. Some men break under pressure. I thrive in it. My daughter deserves the real truth. It is coming." He wore the uniform, but I was the one at war. Jason stared at the images. In each post, she wore that same performative smile, the one she used at dinner parties. Polished, posed, hollow. He could see the pattern. She was laying groundwork, not for court, but for sympathy, shaping herself as the victim, publicly. And it was working. Comments filled the screen. "You got this, queen." "He sounds unstable." "Stay strong." "Sending love." "Hope the courts protect you." Jason leaned back in his chair, phone still in hand. She was preparing the world to see him as the villain, not in court, but in the court of public opinion. He called Maya. "She is baiting it now," he said. "I know," Maya replied. "That is why we do not respond on social media. We respond in court. With precision." Jason nodded. "I just want this done." "It will be," she assured him. "And when it is, no one will remember her captions. They will remember her arrest record." Jason ended the call and looked at the final screenshot again. That last caption: "He wore the uniform, but I was the one at war." His jaw tightened. "No," he muttered aloud. "You were the one who lit the fuse." The night before the hearing, the house was too quiet. Jason walked through each room slowly, checking every lock, every window. Lily was asleep in her room, her arms wrapped around her stuffed bunny like a life raft. He paused at the doorway, watching her chest rise and fall in steady rhythm. He knew tomorrow would change everything. For him, for Brianna, for Lily most of all. He moved to the living room and sat on the couch. The trial brief was ready. The exhibits were numbered. The affidavit from Dr. Rossner had been submitted. The drawing Lily made, sealed and protected. The recordings, the emails, the forged documents. All of it was packed and labeled in a black case sitting by the door. Still, Jason could not sleep. He picked up an old photo from the mantel. Their wedding day. Brianna in her lace gown, smiling with fake innocence. He in uniform, proud and blind. He stared at the image for a long time, then returned it to the shelf. At 3:27 a.m., he made coffee. Black, strong, the kind they used to brew in field tents when everything else around them was chaos. He sat outside on the porch and sipped, the air sharp with early morning stillness. His mind was clear, not angry, not afraid, just ready. The courthouse buzzed with morning energy, heels clacking, papers shuffling, the low murmur of lives colliding under fluorescent lights. Jason stood near the elevator in a dark suit. No medals, no flash, just clean and steady. Maya joined him, hair tight in a bun, black blazer pressed to perfection. "You ready?" she asked, her voice crisp. "I have been ready for months," he replied. They entered the courtroom just as Brianna and her attorney arrived. Brianna wore beige, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back into a humble mother style, every move calculated. She glanced at Jason once. He did not blink. She looked away. The judge entered moments later. Case number 3402, Walker versus Walker. Custody and asset hearing, with counterclaims of fraud, forgery, and attempted defamation. Jason sat straight as the clerk began to call exhibits. Maya opened the briefcase and started pulling files. Organized. Ready. Jason's hands stayed folded in his lap. He looked over at Lily, seated beside the court-appointed guardian near the gallery, her little legs swinging. She smiled when she saw him, and that was the moment he felt the tension lift. This was not about pride or revenge. It was about protecting that little girl from the people who tried to use her like a pawn. The judge cleared his throat. Mr. Walker, are you prepared to make your initial statement? Jason stood, calm, grounded. Yes, Your Honor, I am. And the room fell completely silent. Because now, it was time to burn the mask she wore. The courtroom was still as Jason took the stand. Maya stood beside him like a sentinel, flipping open the binder of evidence. Her voice rang clear. Your Honor, my client will now provide his sworn statement. This includes testimony regarding the systematic defamation of his character, the attempted theft of his military benefits, and the use of forged documents to transfer marital assets under fraudulent terms. Jason cleared his throat and looked directly at the judge. He did not speak like a man pleading. He spoke like a man reporting facts in a debriefing. I deployed overseas for my country. I left behind my wife and daughter with the belief that I was protecting their future. While I was gone, my wife conspired with another man to forge my signature, transfer properties we both owned, and use my name in connection with fraudulent real estate schemes. He paused. Everything I have said is backed by financial records, bank statements, intercepted emails, and expert authentication reports. I did not know I was being used. I was too busy keeping other men alive. Maya handed the judge a stack of sealed documents. Exhibit C through H, Your Honor. Jason turned to Brianna, who sat stone-faced. I came home thinking I would rebuild a life, he said. Instead, I walked into a war zone. Gasps echoed as Maya clicked a remote. A screen lit up behind them, displaying the email from Chase to Brianna. Once Jason is ruled unstable, we get the house and the kid. He'll break. We win. Jason's voice never cracked. I did not break. The judge narrowed his eyes. Mrs. Walker, do you have a response? Brianna stood slowly. Her lips trembled. That email was taken out of context. I did not. Your Honor, Maya cut in. We would like to submit one more document. Just one page. She slid it across the table. The judge read it. His expression darkened. Then he looked up and said something no one expected. Bailiff, please secure the doors. Jason was frozen, not because of fear, but because he knew what was coming next. The judge held up the final document, a sealed DNA report, certified by the county hospital's private lab. According to this file, the judge said, the child in question, Lily Walker, does not share paternity with Jason Walker. A stunned silence choked the room. Brianna's mouth fell open. Chase blinked rapidly from the gallery bench. The color drained from both of their faces. Jason did not move. He had found the report 2 weeks earlier. He had not told Maya. He had not told anyone. Because he needed the truth to surface in that room. He needed them to hear it from the judge's lips. Brianna stood, shaking. Your Honor, I can explain. This was years ago. Jason knew I was pregnant when he got home. I returned home 3 months after the estimated conception date, Jason said coldly, rising from his seat. And I never questioned it. Because I loved her. Because I loved Lily. I still do. He turned to the judge. But love should not be weaponized. And it has been. Over and over. The courtroom rippled with murmurs. Lily, seated across the room with her guardian, looked between the adults, confused but calm. Jason's eyes softened. I do not care what that paper says. She is still my daughter. The judge raised his hand. This courtroom is not about emotions. It is about the law. And based on the evidence before me, there is now a second charge, paternity fraud. Jason's voice dropped to a whisper as he looked at Brianna one last time. You could have told the truth, he said. Even once. And she broke. Brianna collapsed into the chair, sobbing into her hands. But the damage was done, and the court was no longer on her side. As court adjourned for recess, the hall outside buzzed like a hive of hornets. Reporters crowded the steps. Someone had leaked the courtroom development. The words paternity fraud, custody war, and federal charges were flying through whispers like wildfire. Jason sat in a private conference room with Maya, who poured him a glass of water and said quietly, "You handled that better than I have seen most men handle anything." He gave a small nod. "I had time to process it," he replied. "The night I read that report, I sat in Lily's room for 3 hours. I watched her sleep, and I realized nothing would change for me." Maya hesitated. "Do you want to find out who the biological father is?" Jason pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket. "I already did." He handed it to her. A copy of a lab result. Biological match, Chase Adams. Maya's hands tightened around the page. Jason leaned forward, voice razor sharp. "Now we bring everything. Financial crimes. Identity fraud. Paternity deception. The full case. I want federal charges filed this week." Maya nodded. "I have already drafted the motion. The Department of Justice is reviewing your package." Just then, Kel walked in. He tossed a phone on the table. Chase just tried to wipe his laptop. I mirrored his cloud before he got to it. Jason raised an eyebrow. "What did you find?" Cal smirked. "Bank transfers, audio messages, and a draft statement from Brianna preparing to accuse you of physical abuse. All dated before she ever filed for separation." Jason inhaled slowly. "They wanted to erase me," he said. Maya locked eyes with him. "Then let us make sure the only thing that gets erased is them." Maya slid a flash drive into the courtroom's presentation console. "Your Honor," she said with calm precision. The following footage was recovered from the interior security cameras at the Walker residence. Timestamped. Unedited. Synced with official court documents. Jason remained silent, seated beside her. The video began to play. The screen showed Brianna in the kitchen, unaware of the small camera hidden above the fridge light. She paced with her phone in hand, sipping wine. Lily sat at the table coloring quietly. Then Brianna walked over and crouched beside her. "Remember what Mommy said?" Her voice cooed, artificial sweetness coating every word. "When the lady from court asks you questions, you just say Daddy yells sometimes, okay? That is all. Nothing bad. Just that he is loud. Can you do that for Mommy?" Lily nodded slowly, still focused on her coloring. In the courtroom, Brianna buried her face in her hands. The judge's voice sliced the silence. "And to confirm, this child manipulation took place before any official custody filings." "Yes, Your Honor," Maya replied. "This is premeditated coercion of a minor." Jason clenched his fists. He remembered that night. He had been out of the room, only steps away. Had he walked in 30 seconds earlier, he might have stopped it. But now the whole room saw it. The manipulation, the planning, the betrayal. The video ended. A long pause followed. "Court will reconvene in 15 minutes, the judge said sternly. "And when it does, we will address the custody implications immediately." Brianna looked up, her face pale, mascara smeared. Jason met her eyes once and saw something new in her expression. Fear. It had taken weeks to plan. Jason had created a burner identity, set up a false lead about a fake investment opportunity in northern Nevada, something Chase would jump at. The bait email had read, "Private military housing project. High yield. Silent partner needed. Legal oversight guaranteed." Chase's reply came within hours. "Sounds great. Can we structure it like the last ones? I will use the same vet-friendly LLCs from the Texas deals. Just need to keep it off radar till after court." Maya printed the full exchange. Jason watched her hand it to the judge, along with an affidavit from the hosting provider verifying the IP address matched Chase's office computer. The courtroom was silent as the judge read through it. "This email confirms direct involvement in housing grant fraud," he said finally, "and confirms premeditated deception involving Jason Walker's military affiliations." Chase shifted in his seat, sweat gathering at his collar. Jason did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply stared at the man who had once been like a brother, and who had tried to erase him from his own family. The judge continued, "I am referring this immediately to the State Financial Crimes Division and to the Veterans Grant Oversight Committee. This level of exploitation will not go unpunished." Jason sat back slowly. This was not just about winning anymore. It was about making sure no one else like him was ever targeted again. Maya stood in the center of the courtroom like a storm in a tailored blazer. "Your Honor, my client does not simply request full custody. He requests a complete severance of legal rights from the respondent due to abuse of trust, criminal conspiracy, and psychological manipulation of the child." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You are requesting full parental termination?" "Yes, Your Honor. Based on cumulative evidence, financial exploitation of a deployed spouse, perjury, manipulation of a minor, and paternity fraud." Jason could feel the air in the room tighten. Even the bailiffs looked up. Brianna's lawyer stammered to his feet. "This is extreme. You cannot terminate her rights over mistakes." Maya turned sharply. "Mistakes? Is it a mistake to falsely accuse a soldier of being mentally unfit while draining his accounts? Is it a mistake to coach a child to lie to a judge? To falsify documents? To fake paternity?" Her voice cracked like thunder. The judge held up his hand. "I will review the motion, but based on the evidence provided, I am prepared to order emergency sole custody effective immediately. Final judgment pending closing arguments." Jason exhaled, not with relief, with clarity. This was the beginning of the end. Not for him, for her. The call came just after 6 a.m. Cal's voice was low, but urgent. Chase did not show up to his office. He missed a deposition with state investigators, and his phone has been off for 10 hours. His car is still at his apartment, but he is not. Jason sat up from the couch, his military instincts snapping back into focus. "Do you think he ran?" Jason asked. "I think he is trying to disappear," Cal replied. "But he is sloppy under pressure. He knows the feds are circling." Jason stood by the window, watching the sunrise push over the rooftops. He could feel it in his gut. This was desperation. Chase was not wired to handle consequences. He had always been the kind of man who made messes and left others to clean them up. "Let me guess," Jason said. "He did not clear any funds from his primary accounts." "Nope," Cal confirmed. "But we flagged a $5,000 ATM withdrawal last night in El Paso, and I checked a private airstrip there. One chartered flight filed for Vegas, again. No passenger list submitted." Jason exhaled slowly. Cowards heading back to his playground. Cal paused. "What do you want me to do?" "Let him go," Jason said. "The more rope he takes, the tighter the noose." He hung up and turned to face the war table in his living room. One name still circled in red, Eli Trent. Jason picked up the file. The financier. The missing link in all this. If Chase was on the run, Eli was going to be next. But Jason was already ahead of them both. Because justice was not coming. It had already arrived. Tanner Reed, Brianna's high-priced attorney, finally blinked. He walked into the courtroom late, his suit rumpled, eyes hollow from a night of damage control. "Your Honor," he began shakily, "my client is open to a resolution. She is willing to forfeit property assets in exchange for partial custody rights and privacy of record." Jason sat still. Maya crossed her legs, slow and deliberate. "No," she said flatly. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Counselor Delgado." "There will be no deal," Maya said. "You do not get to smear a soldier, steal from federal programs, and then negotiate your way out with half a house and weekend visits." Tanner adjusted his tie. "There's a child involved." Surely, yes, Maya interrupted. A child who was emotionally manipulated, coached to lie, weaponized in a custody war. My client has protected her from day one. We are not bargaining with terrorists. Brianna, sitting behind her lawyer, looked smaller than ever. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her posture wilted. Jason did not even look at her now. Not out of spite. Out of nothing. She had become a hollow figure. A warning, not a woman. The judge leaned forward. Then we proceed with final argument and sentencing next week. Until then, emergency full custody remains with Mr. Walker. Jason nodded once. And for the first time since this started, he felt the weight beginning to lift. The day of final arguments arrived like a storm cloud. The courthouse was surrounded. Reporters, court clerks, investigators, even quiet federal agents from the Oversight Division. The room was packed. Jason walked in without a tie, just a charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, and the calm of a man who had survived war zones worse than this. Brianna wore gray again. Her lawyer whispered to her. She nodded, but her hands shook. The judge looked out over the courtroom. Let us begin. Maya stood. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. My client was targeted, used, lied to, and still, he never retaliated. He built a case the right way. For his daughter. For his dignity. She turned toward the gallery, then back to the bench. Brianna Walker faked paternity, falsified financial records, manipulated her child, and engaged in a conspiracy with Chase Adams to siphon money from a federal veteran housing initiative. She paused. In war, deception is a weapon. But in family, it is a poison. Jason looked over at Lily, sitting quietly with the guardian. Watching him, he smiled. Then Maya rested her hands on the table. We are not asking for vengeance. We are demanding accountability, full custody, full financial restitution, and full criminal referral. The judge nodded slowly. And the defense? Tanner Reed stood, weak, shaking. My client was overwhelmed, is remorseful, and wants to rebuild her relationship with her daughter. Jason finally looked at her, for just a second, and saw nothing he recognized. No remorse, no understanding, just regret for being caught. The judge looked down at the files. Final judgment will be rendered in 72 hours. Until then, this court is adjourned. The gavel struck, and the silence that followed was not relief. It was the still breath before a verdict that would destroy everything Brianna thought she could hold on to. The courtroom was quiet, but tense. The kind of silence that wrapped around everyone's shoulders and pressed down. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Jason. Mr. Walker, before I deliver judgment, you may address the court. Jason stood. He did not look at Brianna. He did not look at the gallery. Just the judge and Lily, sitting in the corner, coloring softly with her guardian. My daughter saved me, he said quietly. Murmurs echoed around the room. Jason continued. She is not mine by blood. That truth nearly broke me. But what matters is not blood. It is choice. And I choose her every day, even when her mother did not. He took a breath. I have worn a uniform most of my adult life. I have stood between violence and innocence. I never thought I would need to do it in my own house. But I did. And I do not regret 1 second of it. He finally looked at Brianna. I gave you everything. You took what I gave and turned it into a weapon, not just against me, but against a little girl who trusted you. And that is something I will never forgive. He turned back to the judge. All I want now is to raise my daughter in peace, with truth, and without fear. He sat down, and no one said a word. Even Brianna's lawyer looked at the floor, because there was nothing left to argue. It happened before the judge could even finish his ruling. The courtroom doors burst open. 2 FBI agents entered, flanked by 2 officers from the U.S. Marshal's office. They approached the bench and handed the judge a document. He read it, then nodded grimly. This court is now in recess, he announced. Mr. Adams and Mrs. Walker, stand and face the agents. Gasps filled the room. What? No, wait. Brianna stammered, standing as the agents moved in. You are both under federal arrest, one of the agents said. Charges include grant fraud, identity theft, paternity fraud, conspiracy, and attempted custodial interference. Chase, who had snuck back into the courtroom an hour earlier, thinking he could still spin the narrative, froze as cuffs locked around his wrists. You cannot be serious. Brianna shouted. This is a setup. Jason did this. This is his revenge. Jason stood calmly. No, he said. This is justice. As Brianna was dragged past him, she met his eyes. Hers were wide with panic. No more arrogance. No more control. She had thought she would walk away clean. But the system she tried to manipulate had finally turned on her. Outside the courtroom, the press swarmed like hornets. Jason shielded Lily with his body as Maya ushered them to a waiting car. Questions flew in all directions. Mr. Walker, how do you feel after today's arrest? Is it true your daughter is not biologically yours? Will you press for full restitution? What do you want people to know? Jason paused, turned to face the crowd, and answered only one question. She is my daughter. That is all anyone needs to know. Then he got in the car. Back home, the house was eerily quiet. Lily was upstairs, humming while she organized her toys. Jason stood in the kitchen, staring at the documents spread across the counter. Everything was over. The hearings, the cameras, the lies. And yet, it did not feel like victory. It felt like aftermath. He sat down and pulled out an old notebook, the one he used during missions. Inside, he had scribbled notes these past few months. His plan, his dates, his doubts. He flipped to the back. One line stood alone. The war ends when she is safe. He tore the page out, burned it in the sink, and finally let himself exhale. 3 days later, the final ruling came. Jason sat alone in the judge's chamber while Maya stood beside him, her arms crossed, expression unreadable. The judge looked down at the paperwork before him. Mr. Walker, I have reviewed every piece of submitted evidence. This is one of the most egregious cases of emotional, financial, and legal betrayal I have ever presided over. Jason remained still. I am awarding you full and permanent sole custody of the child, Lily Walker. All visitation rights for Brianna Walker are terminated until further legal review. The child is to retain your last name, and your parental status remains protected under binding court order. Jason blinked once, then nodded. The court also authorizes immediate forfeiture of all shared marital property to the petitioner. Mrs. Walker's assets are frozen pending federal investigation. Maya let out a small breath. Jason just closed his eyes. It was done, all of it. But as he left the room and stepped out into the soft daylight, he realized something. It had never been about winning. It had always been about protecting what mattered. And now, he could finally start over. Not as a soldier, not as a husband, just as a father. Jason stood in the hallway of the courthouse as officers escorted Brianna past him, wrists cuffed, mascara streaked, hair wild from tears and panic. But this time, she did not scream. She just looked at him, eyes swollen, shoulders trembling. I loved you, she whispered, almost too quiet to hear. Jason did not flinch. He said nothing, but the words hit him, not because they were true, but because they were weaponized. Even now, she was trying to play on the last thread she could reach. Tell them I was not evil, she choked out. Tell them I was just broken. Jason turned slowly to face her, his voice low but unwavering. You had choices, and every single time, you chose wrong. You were not broken. You were just cruel. The officers moved her forward, and she stumbled once on her heels. He watched her go, not with satisfaction, not with hate, just with the weight of closure settling in his bones. When she disappeared behind the elevator doors, Jason finally exhaled. It was over. Not clean, not simple, but over. That night, Jason sat at his desk with a pair of headphones. The final audio file Cal had uncovered was still waiting. He had not listened to it yet. Maya had said, "You do not need to. It is just more of the same." But Jason knew he had to hear every lie, every word. He pressed play. It was a recording from Brianna's call with Chase. Her voice casual, confident. If he finds out, we spin it. PTSD, right? Nobody wants to question a soldier's mental health. Worst case, we play the fear card. Judges eat that up. Chase laughed. You are cold as hell. I'm just smart. He thinks love makes people loyal. But loyalty is for suckers. Jason closed his eyes as the words echoed in his ears. There was no sadness left, only finality. He clicked save, encrypted the file, and filed it in a digital vault, right next to the evidence folder titled, The Day the Mask Fell. Then he shut down the computer. Forever. The fallout hit fast. Local news stations ran the story for days. Veteran targeted in financial scam by wife and business partner. FBI confirms grant fraud charges. Custody returned to decorated soldier after shocking DNA revelation. Brianna's name was everywhere. So was Chase's. Clients abandoned his real estate firm overnight. His website was pulled offline within 48 hours. Properties listed under Vanguard West were red flagged for review, freezing millions in assets. Jason watched it unfold quietly, not with celebration, but with measured calm. His neighbors, who once praised Brianna's garden parties and complimented her dresses, now crossed the street to avoid eye contact. The PDA moms who once invited her for coffee removed her from every chat thread. Justice did not always wear a robe. Sometimes, it moved in silence. Jason received a message from one of Chase's former assistants, a quiet thank you. She had known something was off, but was too scared to speak up. You stood up. You made it stop, she wrote. For what it is worth, I am proud of you. Jason read it, then deleted it. He did not need praise. He just needed peace. 3 weeks after sentencing, Jason received an official envelope from the federal court. Inside, a summary of charges. Brianna Walker, 14 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of paternity fraud, 1 count of custodial interference, 1 count of conspiracy to commit identity theft. Sentencing recommendation, 14 years federal prison, no parole. Chase Adams, 11 counts of white-collar fraud, 2 counts of obstruction, 1 count of racketeering. Sentencing recommendation, 18 years. Jason sat with the envelope for a long time. Lily played quietly on the carpet nearby, building towers with colored blocks. She smiled when she noticed him watching. Daddy, look, she said. It is our house. He looked at the little tower of red and blue blocks. It sure is, he replied, setting the paper down. She ran over and hugged his leg. Jason rested his hand on her head, grounding himself in the only thing that mattered now. Not revenge, not the courtroom, but rebuilding. Together, block by block. Jason sat across from Lily's school counselor, his hands folded in his lap, trying not to clench his jaw. She has been quiet, the counselor said gently. Withdrawn, but not sad. Just thinking. A lot. Jason nodded. She saw too much. Heard too much. I did everything I could, but you did more than most, the counselor said, holding his gaze. But she needs space now. And stability. Routine. Not just safety, but warmth. That night, Jason tucked Lily into bed. She was holding her bunny tighter than usual. Daddy. Yes, sweetheart. Is Mommy still mad at you? Jason exhaled, brushing hair from her forehead. Mommy made some choices that hurt a lot of people. She is not mad at me. She is mad that I told the truth. Lily blinked. Is she coming back? Jason hesitated. No, honey. Not for a long time. She did not cry, just nodded, small and wise in a way no child should have to be. I still love her, she whispered. Jason kissed her forehead. That is okay. You are allowed to love her. And you never have to stop. She reached out, her fingers wrapping around his hand. But I love you more. Because you stayed. Jason did not speak. Could not. He just held her hand as long as she needed. Jason stood in the backyard with a toolbox, staring at the swing set he had built 5 years ago. The wood was worn. One chain hung loose. The paint had faded in the sun. It had once been Brianna's idea. Let us build something for her together, she had said, smiling with plans already forming. Now, Jason worked alone. Bolt by bolt, he reinforced every beam, sanded the edges smooth, painted the wood a fresh sky blue, the color Lily loved most. He did not rush. This was not just about fixing a swing. It was about fixing a memory. When Lily came outside that afternoon and saw the new swing, her face lit up. You fixed it. No, Jason said. I made it better. She ran to it, kicked off, and soared back and forth. The wind whipped through her hair. Her laugh rang out, free and bright. Jason sat on the porch, watching her. And for the first time in a long time, he did not feel like a soldier or a case file or a man holding his life together with duct tape and willpower. He felt like a father, and that was enough. Morning sunlight broke through the curtains as Jason stood in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. Lily sat at the table, drawing on the back of a cereal box. The radio played something soft in the background. Peaceful, unintrusive. There was no yelling, no hiding, no shadows waiting in the corners. Just the scent of maple syrup and the slow, steady rhythm of a house finally at peace. Lily looked up. Can we have pancakes every Saturday? Jason smiled. Every Saturday, every month, forever. Even with blueberries? Especially with blueberries. She grinned wide and dug into her plate. After breakfast, they painted the hallway together. Lily choosing the colors, Jason handling the edges. Each stroke of the roller felt like a breath. A step. A clearing away of everything that came before. The house had been a battlefield. Now it was a home again. Not perfect, but real. A week later, Jason checked the mailbox and found a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a single note. You were not alone. I made sure of it. Sometimes soldiers watch each other's backs, even when they are not asked to. At the bottom, no name. Just a set of initials. R.C. Jason stared at the paper, heart tightening in his chest. R.C., a friend from his second deployment. A man who had worked in cyber intel. A ghost from the past. He smiled. Not a wide one. Just enough. Then folded the note and placed it in the safe with the other documents he had promised himself he would never open again. Some ghosts protect you, even when you forget they exist. That night, Jason stood on the back porch, coffee in hand, stars above him. Lily was asleep upstairs. Safe. Whole. And him? He was not broken. Just rebuilt. And this time, stronger. Jason sat across from Maya in her office one last time. Stacks of paper surrounded them. But it was not chaos. It was closure. Signed orders. Confirmations. Digital filings logged and time-stamped. The DOJ has sealed all family court documents, Maya said, tapping a folder. Lily's name is redacted from every document moving forward. No journalist, no public record, no one will ever be able to use this against her. Jason nodded slowly. She will grow up clean. She will grow up free, Maya corrected. Thanks to you. Jason looked down at the last official paper on the table. Final custody judgment. Jason Walker, sole legal and physical guardian of Lily Walker. He picked up the pen. His signature had never felt heavier, or more earned. As they shook hands goodbye, Maya gave him one final gift, a small bronze plaque in a velvet box. On it, engraved, "You did not fight for revenge. You fought for peace." Jason did not speak, but his silence said everything. Life settled, not fast, but real. Jason woke before dawn now, not from nightmares, but from purpose. He packed Lily's lunch, walked her to school, kissed her forehead as she sprinted through the gate with her backpack bouncing. He took consulting jobs again, small cybersecurity projects that paid well and stayed quiet. Enough to support them. Nothing that required a uniform or a lie. Lily had dance class on Tuesdays, piano on Thursdays. He let her pick the music in the truck on the way home. Even when she played the same song 7 times in a row, the house felt lighter. Photos were back on the walls. Real ones. Him and Lily at the lake. Her in her Halloween costume. A candid shot of her asleep in his arms during movie night. No more masks. No more watchers. Just life. And love. One morning, Lily came downstairs with a drawing in her hand. She handed it to Jason with a sleepy smile. It was them, holding hands, in front of a blue house, a swing to the right, and above them, words written in crayon, "Safe now." Jason held the picture, his throat tight. "Yes," he whispered. "We are." Jason found himself at the Veterans Memorial Wall that Sunday morning. The city was quiet, the street still. He stood in front of a name etched in stone. Corporal Ethan Riley, his first team leader, killed in a convoy blast in Kandahar. A man who once told him, "Fighting for your country's one thing. Fighting for the people you love? That is the real war." Jason placed a folded note at the base of the wall. No flowers, no speech, just a silent thank you. He turned and walked away slowly, wind brushing his coat. That night, he sat on the porch with Lily asleep upstairs. He looked up at the sky, stars scattered across black like bullet holes in velvet. And he thought about all the noise he had survived. Gunfire, betrayal, lies, courtrooms, screaming matches, whispers behind locked doors. And then he smiled, because now he had silence. But not the kind that isolates, the kind that heals. The letter came on a rainy Thursday. No return address, just a plain envelope with Jason's name written in tight, careful handwriting. He opened it in the kitchen while Lily played upstairs, her voice faint through the ceiling as she sang to her stuffed animals. Inside was a single page, signed at the bottom, "Brianna. Jason, I know you will not write back. I do not expect forgiveness. I barely expect you to read this. But I needed you to know, I think about her every day. The things I did, the damage I caused, there is no excuse. I was wrong. I broke everything. And I am paying for it now, every hour of every day. Lily deserves better. She always did. And so did you. Tell her. One day, if she ever asks, tell her I was sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I finally saw the mirror, and I hated the reflection." Jason stared at the letter for a long time. He did not cry. He did not rage. He folded it quietly, placed it in a folder labeled "Closed." Not forgotten, but no longer open. Then he walked upstairs, knocked softly on Lily's door. She opened it wearing glitter socks and a crooked ponytail. "Want to build a fort?" she asked. Jason smiled. "Only if I get the middle pillow." She giggled and ran to grab blankets. Downstairs, the letter sat in silence. But the man who once lived in fear of it was already past it. It had been 1 year. 1 full year since the courtroom gavel came down. Since sirens drowned out the lies. Since Jason walked away, not from a woman, or a house, or a fight, but from a war that almost stole him. Lily danced across the backyard now, in the sunlight, her laughter cutting through the breeze. The swing Jason rebuilt creaked gently. The grass was green. The paint on the house no longer cracked. Inside, the photo wall had grown. New pictures, real ones. Jason stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching her twirl in circles. Free, wild, unbroken. He had won. But more importantly, he had healed. Brianna was serving 14 years in a federal facility. Chase had taken a plea deal, but would not see the outside until his hair was gray. Eli, facing charges in 2 states. The grant program they tried to exploit, now restructured, better protected, thanks to Jason's testimony. Karma did not knock. It kicked the damn door down. Jason did not need to gloat. Because true revenge was rebuilding your life so beautifully, it became a monument to your survival. And tonight, as Lily curled beside him on the couch, her head resting on his chest, she whispered, "I love you, Daddy." He kissed her forehead and said, "I love you more." The lights dimmed. The stars blinked alive outside. And the war was finally, fully, over. Before you go, what hurts more? A betrayal from the enemy you expect? Or the silence of someone who once swore they'd never leave your side? Tell me in the comments below. And you? Yes, you reading this right now. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments so we can see how far this story traveled. If this story hit you deep, if you felt that fire in your chest, that ache in your gut, like it, share it, and politely, but seriously subscribe. Not for me, for the next story, the next war, the next twist that you never saw coming. We meet again in another tale of betrayal, revenge, and justice. Until then, take care of your peace and protect your truth. See you soon.